Actually, the next thing I want to do there is get a tennis court built. And I still have the pool table somewhere, don't I? The pool table, we don't have it anymore.
When Ozzy Osbourne took his final breath on July 22, 2025, the world was still reeling from the shock when an even bigger revelation surfaced. His last will and testament, long kept private, became public. Inside were instructions that shook not only his family, but also millions of fans. A fortune worth more than $200 million built from decades of music royalties, valuable properties in both the United Kingdom and the United States, shares in his business ventures, and future rights to his image was not divided among all his children. Instead, it went largely to one person. That decision sparked a storm that has yet to calm. The drama unfolded immediately. Within hours of Ozzy's passing, a lawyer read the will and announced that none of his 3 children from his first marriage would inherit a meaningful share of his estate. Outraged, they turned to legal teams to challenge the decision. Soon, theories spread like wildfire. Was Ozzy, who had been suffering from severe health problems, still capable of making rational decisions when he signed the document, or had someone close to him influenced or even manipulated his final choices? That morning, a heavy silence hung over the Osbourne mansion in Buckinghamshire. Sharon Osbourne, his wife of more than 40 years, entered the bedroom after he failed to respond throughout the night. On the bed lay Ozzy, pale but calm, as if he had drifted into eternal sleep. Sharon screamed for help, and doctors rushed in, but their efforts were in vain. The Prince of Darkness had passed away in his sleep, without a final word to his family or fans. Just hours later, Sharon issued a short but devastating statement. Ozzy Osbourne passed away this morning, surrounded by his loved ones. The world froze. News outlets scrambled to cover the story. Fans expressed grief online, and friends in the music industry began sending tributes. But what no one expected was how quickly the morning turned into chaos when the details of his will came to light. Ozzy was more than just a rock legend. He was a symbol of rebellion, a man whose voice had echoed across arenas for over 50 years. Yet, as the grieving continued, a new chapter opened, one focused not on music, but on money, property, and power. The will, read by his lawyer that same day, revealed that Sharon Osbourne was granted full control over the estate. Every property, every royalty check, every business share, everything was placed under her authority until her own passing. She wasn't simply an heir, she was the ruler of the empire. Only after her death would the fortune pass to the 3 children she shared with Ozzy: Amy, Kelly, and Jack. The children from his first marriage, Elliot, Jessica, and Louis, were mentioned only briefly. They would receive a fixed sum of $5 million held in trust, but they were completely excluded from any role in managing Ozzy's legacy. To them, it felt like another painful reminder of the distance that had always existed between them and their father. Ozzy's estate was vast and complex. It wasn't only about money or property. It also included ownership of music catalogs, future royalties, and rights to his image. These rights guaranteed that his name, face, and music would generate income for decades to come. Whoever controlled them would control the flow of wealth for generations. Each of the 3 children from Sharon's marriage to Ozzy received something unique. Amy Osbourne, the eldest, who stayed away from the family's reality television fame, was given a trust fund. The money would only be released in stages and not fully until she reached 50 years old. This condition left many wondering whether Ozzy had doubts about her decisions or whether there was an unspoken rift between father and daughter. Kelly Osbourne, bold and outspoken, was named co-executor of the estate alongside her mother. This gave her direct influence over how assets would be distributed. She had the authority to approve or reject future financial decisions, making her one of the most powerful figures in the family's financial future. Jack Osbourne, the only son, inherited valuable California real estate as well as the rights to his father's music royalties. These royalties are an endless goldmine, ensuring a steady flow of income as Ozzy's songs continued to be streamed and played worldwide. On paper, it seemed like Sharon had designed a carefully structured system, but beneath the surface, the arrangement raised uncomfortable questions. Why did Sharon receive absolute control? And why were Ozzy's first 3 children left with so little? To understand the controversy, one must look at Ozzy's final years. His health had been failing for a long time. He battled Parkinson's disease, spinal injuries, and the lasting damage of a 2003 accident that left him with metal rods in his body. Treatments ranged from stem cell therapy to constant rehabilitation. His daily life became a struggle, with Sharon always at his side. She wasn't just a wife, she was his manager, protector, and the person who organized every aspect of his life. Doctors, therapists, even his public appearances were controlled by her. According to insiders, she installed surveillance cameras in their home to monitor him at all times. Many saw this as deep devotion. Ozzy himself once said in a 2023 interview, "I'm a sinking ship, and she's the only one who can swim." But others believed this level of control blurred the line between care and domination. Could Sharon have influenced his decision-making in those final months, especially when his memory and judgment were weakened by illness? Before his death, Ozzy made one unusual request. He didn't want a traditional funeral with silence and mourning. Instead, he wanted one final party, filled with laughter, music, and dancing. "I don't need a vigil," he said in his last interview. "I need one more stage." And so, just weeks before his passing, he performed what is now considered his final act at Villa Park in Birmingham. Sitting on an iron throne, his voice weaker but still sharp, he sang to tens of thousands of fans. At the time, no one knew. It was goodbye. Now, it is remembered as his true farewell. Publicly, plans for his funeral remain unclear. Some reports suggest a private service at a historic church near London, while a larger memorial in Birmingham may feature performances by legends like Metallica, Elton John, and Robert Plant. But inside the family, the focus is less on ceremonies and more on the battle over his will. Total control for Sharon. She inherited everything, not just temporarily, but with complete authority until her death. None of the children could override her decisions. Timing of the new will. It was signed less than 3 months before Ozzy died, when his health was at its weakest. Previous versions of the will, which divided the estate more fairly among the children, were discarded. The witness. The person who signed the will was Sharon's longtime personal lawyer, not an independent attorney. This has fueled doubts about whether Ozzy fully understood what he was signing. An insider claimed that Ozzy once expressed a desire to repair his relationship with his estranged children and even planned to adjust his will. Yet no such changes appeared in the final version. Did those wishes disappear, or were they silenced? Already, whispers of a lawsuit are spreading. The children from his first marriage are reportedly meeting with lawyers in London, determined to challenge the will. Their questions are straightforward. Why was the will changed so recently? Was Ozzy of sound mind? And who truly orchestrated the decisions in those final months? Legal experts believe the case could become one of the most explosive inheritance battles in entertainment history. If proven that Ozzy was manipulated or unable to understand what he was signing, parts of the will could be overturned. For now, Sharon has remained silent, refusing to engage with the press. Kelly and Jack avoid direct questions, while Amy stays completely out of the spotlight. Meanwhile, Elliot, Jessica, and Louis, his children from the first marriage, are quietly building their case. The question lingers: was Ozzy's final will a reflection of his true wishes, or was it shaped by those around him? Some argue that, after a lifetime of chaos, addiction, and fame, Ozzy simply wanted Sharon to take control, trusting the woman who had stood by him through it all. Others see it differently, a carefully crafted plan that cut out the children who were less favored, and ensured that Sharon's branch of the family would control everything. What remains certain is that Ozzy's death has left more than grief. It has left a battle over wealth, power, and legacy that could drag on for years. His voice may have gone silent, but the echoes of his decisions will continue to shake his family, his fans, and the music industry he helped define. Ozzy once called himself the Prince of Darkness, but in death, it seems the shadows around him have only grown deeper. In 1982, when Ozzy and Sharon got married, his career was collapsing. He was drowning in addiction and close to losing everything. But Sharon, with determination and clever instincts, stepped in and rebuilt him. She turned him from a failing artist into a global rock legend. From that point on, no matter how turbulent their relationship became, she never truly let go of his hand. Fans remember the scandal in 2016 when Ozzy admitted to having an affair with a younger woman. Sharon left him in anger, announcing the marriage was finished. Yet after months apart, she returned. She forgave him, cared for him, and stood by his side as his health declined and his temper grew worse. Few people know that in his 2007 autobiography, Ozzy confessed that in his darkest days, he was violent toward Sharon. He admitted that one drunken night, he nearly killed her. That moment forced him into rehab, though the emotional wounds never completely healed. Still, Sharon remained because of this history. Some believe Ozzy's will was not a random decision, but a final act of redemption, leaving everything his music rights, his property, and the Osbourne brand to Sharon was perhaps his way of apologizing for decades of pain, betrayal, and conflict. It was more than money. It was power, respect, and recognition given to the woman who had guided his life for more than 40 years. To many, this ending feels like a fitting conclusion to a long and complicated love story. Their marriage was far from perfect, but through all the storms, they stayed bound together. In the brutal, chaotic world of rock and roll, they managed to hold on until the very end. But there is another, darker theory. Some whisper that Sharon, exhausted and worn down after years of carrying the weight of Ozzy's care, may have manipulated his final decisions or worse, helped bring about his death quietly. No drama, no violence, just a few pills, a signed document, and a calm goodbye. This suspicion grew stronger because an older will, one that reportedly divided Ozzy's assets fairly between Sharon and their children, suddenly disappeared. The new will surfaced unexpectedly, transferring nearly everything into Sharon's control. The children were left with vague mentions of undisclosed assets, which could mean a hidden trust fund or simply small shares in the family company. Fans and critics alike began to ask, why the sudden change? The controversy deepened when an old television clip resurfaced. In it, Sharon said bluntly, "Taking care of Ozzy in a wifely duty. It's a burden I carry as his manager." At the time, people laughed it off as sarcasm, but after his death, the words feel unsettling, almost like a warning of her frustration and fatigue. Close friends revealed that in his final months, Ozzy often forgot where he was. He sometimes failed to recognize people and even forgot his own children's names. If that was his state of mind, how capable was he of signing the most important legal document of his life? Was it truly his will, or was his trembling hand guided by someone else? The internet remains divided. One side defends Sharon, saying no one sacrificed more for Ozzy than she did. She stood by him through addiction, violence, infidelity, and illness. If anyone deserves control of his legacy, it is her. But the other side sees something suspicious. They demand an investigation. They argue the will was signed under pressure, and they question whether Ozzy's peaceful passing was as natural as it appeared or whether it was carefully arranged. Sharon herself has stayed silent. No statements, no interviews, no public explanations, but her silence only fuels speculation. Across the UK, the US, and Australia, headlines asked the same question: was this a carefully crafted ending? A transfer of power disguised as love? For now, the truth hides in the shadows, the very place Ozzy thrived his entire career. What cannot be denied is the mark Ozzy left on music. His journey began with Black Sabbath, the band that defined heavy metal. When he was kicked out in 1979, many thought his career was over. He was drowning in drugs and alcohol, spiraling into chaos. But instead of disappearing, Ozzy reinvented himself. In 1980, he released Blizzard of Oz with songs like Crazy Train. He shocked the industry and proved he could stand alone. Teaming up with guitarist Randy Rhoads, he created music that was fierce, haunting, and unforgettable. Tragedy struck when Randy died in a plane crash, and again, people thought Ozzy would collapse. Yet he rose again, channeling grief into music. Albums like Bark at the Moon and No More Tears kept him at the top. Through the 1980s and 1990s, even as new genres like grunge dominated, Ozzy remained the voice of heavy metal. Then came a surprising twist. In 2002, the world saw a new side of him through The Osbournes, a reality TV show about his family. Suddenly, the Prince of Darkness became a household name for a completely different reason. Fans saw him as messy, confused, funny, but also deeply emotional. The show made him not just a rock icon, but a pop culture phenomenon. He continued to influence music by founding Ozfest, a massive metal festival that launched new generations of bands. While other artists faded, Ozzy remained a constant force. Even when his health began to fail, he never fully stopped. In 2020, despite Parkinson's disease and multiple injuries, he released Ordinary Man, an album filled with reflection and raw emotion. At 72, his voice still carried power. 2 years later, he released Patient Number 9, featuring legends like Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck. It won a Grammy and cemented his status as a fighter until the end. His final concert in 2025, back in Birmingham, was unforgettable. Sitting on an iron throne, his voice fragile but fierce, Ozzy gave everything he had left. The stadium wept, cheered, and sang with him. It was more than a concert, it was a farewell ritual, a canonization of a man who had become larger than life. Over his career, he sold more than 100 million records. His songs, from Mr. Crowley to Mama, I'm Coming Home, became anthems that carried generations through loneliness, rebellion, and despair. His contradictions, violent yet vulnerable, outrageous yet human, made him unforgettable. Ozzy's legacy is more than music. He embodied survival. A working-class boy from Birmingham, uneducated, addicted, rejected, even imprisoned, who turned his chaos into art. He wasn't a polished hero. He was raw proof that even from ruin, greatness can emerge. His music gave comfort to outcasts, misfits, and anyone who felt lost. He didn't sing from glory. He sang from scars. Now, even as fans debate the will and question the truth behind his death, what remains undeniable is his impact. His voice, his madness, his resilience, they echo on radios, in bedrooms, on stages, and in the hearts of young musicians who refuse to conform. Ozzy Osbourne may be gone, but his flame still burns. He left behind not only wealth and fame, but a spirit of defiance that will never die. His final mystery, the will, the silence, the controversy may never be solved. But perhaps that, too, is fitting for a man who built his legend on chaos. Leaving behind one last enigma is the most Ozzy thing he could have done.